All right. I want to thank you.
Yeah,
I
I
gotta.
enjoyed the having the invitation. It's nice to get out of the house. I don't do that much these days.
I'm excited. I do gotta ask you right out of the gate. Um, are you a felon or were you dropped as a kid? Because you're also a Raiders fan, like
Yes.
myself. So okay, just so.
No, I was actually born and raised in Northern California. So the Raiders were my first team and my first love, and always has been.
When did
So
you become a Raiders fan?
mid '70s, when the Steelers and the Raiders are going at it every year in the AFC and all that. That's when I became a fan. So
I
yeah.
think that's every kid my generation. We were
Mhm.
all, it was, you were either Steelers, Raiders, or Cowboys
Yeah.
back in the '70s, and
Well, I mean, the
it,
Seahawks didn't even exist until
it
late '70s.
well, that was the thing when the Seahawks became a team. It was one of those things. As a kid, I think we were rooting for both. My
Mhm.
mom was diehard Seahawks from day one, but it was one of those things where nobody really knew who the Seahawks were.
Right.
Back in the days of Jim Zorn and Steve Largent
Well, I
and
mean,
those guys.
I knew who they were because they immediately came into the AFC West, and so they were just playing against the Broncos and the Chargers and the Raiders, and so it's just like, okay, it's just another team to root against. I mean, that's the way I looked at it growing up. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I moved to Washington, and then my kids grew up in Washington, and so they're Seahawks fans. So
It was tough at certain Thanksgiving meals because having an older brother who was Cowboys and myself being Raiders and mom telling us both to shut up was we grew up with that. So it
yeah,
was so you grew up in Northern California. What
but yeah. So I was born and raised in Northern California and spent most of my years in Eureka up on the North Coast. And so that's where I actually joined the Guard. And so
so you joined Guard straight out. You didn't
straight out,
okay.
I was still in high school when I signed the paperwork.
What
Yeah.
year is this?
1986. Yeah, a long time ago.
So delayed entry program or were you already
Yeah,
graduated?
it's I can't remember what they called it. It wasn't delayed entry and it wasn't split. They called it something else. It might have been delayed entry. But my older brother went split option, so he went to basic in between his junior and senior year, and then he went to AIT after he graduated high school. And then in between, he drilled with the unit. And so I did the same thing, kind of, because back then you signed up, and then up to a year out, you can ship off to basic training. And so I signed up in February, and then went to like 4 or 5 drills, and then went off to basic, and then normal drills after that. So
So your senior year was '86.
yes,
Okay, so
yep,
we're right on. Class of '87. We rule '86 rules. I'm just throwing
yes,
the obvious out there, but
right,
congrats on doing that out of high school because
mm-hmm.
I did not do that out of high school, and wish I had. That would have been another. You know,
Right,
I didn't go in until I was 31, so I lost out on a lot of
okay.
years in that process. But the guard, the army in general, changed a lot from '87 to
Oh yeah,
2000 when I went in
huge differences. Yeah.
because you and I bring this up a lot and my hope is always to catch our stories, especially those
Mm-hmm.
of us that went through the GWOT era, which has recently come to a close. Uh, you you're coming in with a lot of Vietnam veterans at that point,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and then Desert Storm. Did you end up deploying on Desert Storm?
No, no, I didn't deploy into Desert Storm. So I came in as a 12 Bravo combat engineer, and I did that for 3 years, and then moved down to Stockton, California. And then I went into the local armory there and walked into one door, and it was an aviation unit. And they're like, hey, yeah, we can put you in as a door gunner and send you off to school. Your grades and your scores and everything work out great. Yeah. It'd be a 6 month long school and ship you off, like next week. And I'm like, oh, I can't do that. I moved down there for a job.
Oh,
So
oh,
I mean, I just started a job. I just got an apartment. My wife was pregnant with our first son, and it's just like, no, I can't go off for 6 months. I just can't do that. All right, well, the infantry guys are down the hall. So all right, so I walked down the hall and talked to the infantry guys. Go, yeah, we send you a 2 week school in the summertime. That'll be your AT. It's like, okay, done
wow.
deal. So that's how I became 11 Bravo, and then moved up to
So there,
Washington.
sorry, there's going to
Yeah.
be 11 Bravo. So there's probably going to be a lot
Oh,
of jokes, a lot of jabs here in the process.
that's fine.
But you had the ASVAB score for other things, so we'll
Oh
go.
yeah. No, they told me when I took the ASVAB that I could do anything in the Army that I wanted. And so what I do, 12 Bravo, then I took a step back to 11 Bravo. I mean, it doesn't get any easier than that. Let's be honest. Had fun though.
I
I
bet.
absolutely loved being 11 Bravo. But anyway, back to getting up to Washington. I was working construction, framing houses, residential construction, and the market completely died out. So I was guard bumming, drawing unemployment, just barely getting by, making rent and all that kind of stuff, and just wasn't really working out. And my wife's uncle said they're building like mad up here in Washington. So we packed up like the Beverly Hillbillies, put everything we owned into a Datsun pickup truck and a trailer, little 8x8 trailer that we borrowed from Grandpa. I mean, that's literally everything I own in the world. And we moved up to Washington. We've been here ever since.
That's quite a leap of faith. Did you
Yeah.
have so you had family up here?
Yeah, we had family. So we came up, and my wife's aunt and uncle lived in Port Orchard. And so we moved in with them. We lived in their travel trailer for 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. It wasn't very long because I had a job within 3 days. And then as soon as I got my first paycheck, had an apartment, and then off we went. But they helped us out a bunch. That was huge for us. So
I got because I got to ask folks that come. You know, I was born and raised, even though I lived all over the U.S. I was
mhm.
pretty much born and raised in this area, so I grew up with liquid sunshine.
Right.
What was that like coming from California to our
No
state?
difference.
No different.
No,
Oh,
there,
because
no, there,
you're northern California.
yes.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah.
So Eureka is right on the coastline, and there's a little mountain range right behind it. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a little mountain range. And so the weather comes in, it hits that mountain range, and just dumps water on Eureka. So it was rainy, cloudy, 60 degrees year round. Didn't make any difference. So that's what I grew up in. And then getting out of there was nice. So we went down to Stockton, and I loved it out in the valley in the hot summers. My wife hated it, but she grew up in the valley. And so she grew up in Clear Lake, California, which is hot and warm year round. And so she didn't care for that. But yeah, when we moved up to Washington, is for me, it was no difference. She adjusted to it. She likes it. She's always been a sweater person. So she likes the cooler weather.
Who did you land with when you came to guard wise? Who did you end up with?
So I got into three of the 161 out of uh, Shelton, actually, where I'm living now. So I joined the guard because I came up here, picked up the phone. Because back in those days, if you did an IST, interstate transfer, you didn't have to pre-set up anything. You just had 90 days or you were AWOL. That was it. So 90 days, get into a unit, send all the paperwork back, and they did all the paperwork shuffle and all that. And so that's what I did. Called up Camp Murray and told me I can either go to Kent or I can go to Shelton. And so I was living in Port Orchard. It's like, well, Shelton's a closer drive. I'll go to Shelton. So I went to Shelton, and then they closed that down and sent me to Kent. So yeah, anyway, that's the way it goes.
Now, was it what year is this?
That was in 92. 92 is when I came up to Washington. And so it was 93 or 94. So yes, 93 is when they sent me to Kent because they did a reorg. Kept Shelton open, but Shelton became the tow unit. So the 11 Charlies were in Shelton, and all 11 Bravos were sent up to Kent.
Now you had an older brother that had went in before you.
Oh yes, actually, let's go into the family history here. So my stepdad retired as a E7 motor sergeant out of the guard. My uncle retired as a brigadier general out of the guard. So Brigadier General Dan Brennan was the assistant adjutant general to the state of California.
That had to be. I mean, was he still around when you went in? Did he get to know
Yeah,
that you had joined?
yeah.
That had to be pretty cool. But that's also like a big
So
that
yes and no. I see where you're going with this. Yes, there was some influence stuff. My brother Patrick, he may have got it more because he had the same name. Because he's my step uncle, my stepdad, my name is different. So nobody put two and two together, except for one time, and I kind of blew it. But it was funny. I could not resist this. So at the time, he was Colonel Brennan, full bird colonel. He was I can't remember what position he was, but he was the battalion commander. Got promoted out of that to his full bird, but they invited him back to the 579th Engineers Battalion Ball, and so it was this. I had my date with me. This was before I met my wife, but had my date with me, and we took her to the battalion ball because that's what you do. And he was a guest speaker and everything, and so they're making the rounds and everything, and I was just Lola E4. Yeah, so I'm just kind of standing there waiting because it's my aunt and uncle. I gotta go say hi to him, and so I go over there and wait for the conversation to end, and then whoever it was left, and I go, "Sir, ma'am, how are you?" And Sue, she just, "Oh, stop that, Jeff." And he goes, "You know us, it's Dan and Sue." I go, "Ma'am, I can't do that here." And she goes, "It's Dan and Sue." It's like, "All right, Aunt Sue. Dan, how are you?" And so, we start talking and bullshit and everything, we had a nice little conversation short. And we go walking away, and I hadn't made it maybe two steps before somebody had a hold of my collar and yanked me off to the side, and it was my company commander. It's like, what the hell? I mean, just losing it. Because an E4 was talking to a colonel with Dan and Sue using first names. He didn't catch anything else out of that conversation other than first names. So it's like, relax, take it easy, sir. He's my uncle, so it's my aunt and uncle. That's fine. Nobody's
and he
gonna
already
hurt.
gave the order. Well, by proxy, he already gave the order to
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. So it's not like I initiated that right off the bat. But so I always thought that was funny.
That's did it change any? Were people like, hey, that
No,
that's the general's nephew or any of that
no,
type of
it didn't
nepotism?
change. Yeah,
Nepotism.
no, there was no nepotism in there. It didn't change anything. Primarily because it was, I don't know, maybe like 3 4 months later is no, I guess about a year later is where I had moved to Stockton. So I met my wife, we got married, lived in Woodland for a little while, then moved to Stockton. I guess it's Stockton about 2 years after that. Anyway, so it wasn't very long after that I changed units, and so it was back to nobody knowing who I was again, which is the way I liked it.
Now, did you end up AGR technician
That
when you?
comes a lot later.
It comes a lot later.
So
Okay.
I got a long career to go through. So
Wow.
35 years total
In the guard.
in the guard,
All yeah.
all guard. All right. So Stockton to Port Orchard, and then bounced around the units. As not that I changed any units, they kept changing the unit on me, reorganized. We went from 3 of the 161 to Task Force 303rd to 1 of the 161,
What was it?
all
All
in the same armory.
I was gonna say, was it always 81st at that point?
Yes,
Okay.
always 81st. So I didn't leave the 81st until I went to Joint Force headquarters.
Wow.
Long time later. It was 24 years, I think I had it figured out. 24 years in the 81st, with like 2 years in California, and then 6, 7 years. No, not even that. 2 years at 205th, a year and a half at Joint Force headquarters. So long time in the 81st.
It was. I always say that starting with the 81st, because I was field artillery first with 2146 service battery. They don't have those anymore, but
Yes.
it was 81st, and being field artillery made me appreciate aviation when I went to it.
Right.
It was one of those
It's a
things where,
different world.
yeah,
It's
it's
completely
night and
different
day,
world. Yeah.
but I think it gives you, I think, coming from that portion of combat arms, I think it gives you a different work ethic,
Hmm.
and so when you get into aviation, you don't take it for granted.
Right.
It's you have a definite appreciation for what you were getting to do at that point compared to what you might have been doing, when you first came
Right.
in.
So
But
it's funny you mentioned the service battery. Do you remember Specialist Pat Brennan?
I do. I
That's my
served.
brother.
I served with him on the first deployment.
Yeah.
No way. No,
That
I
that
meant
is
to ask you because when you
yes.
said General Brent, I was like,
Yep.
I know you and Pat know each other, so it's like
So
that's
he's my younger brother. My older brother Greg, he did 6 years in the Guard, all California Guard. Then he got out, and then I went in, and then my younger brother Patrick followed me into the Guard, and then he had his own career of 16, 18 years, something like that, before he got medicaled out after the deployment. But yeah,
that's
a lot of family in the Guard. My son currently is in the Guard, staff sergeant, and he's looking at retiring next year. That's how old I am. My
the fact that you
son is
that's
retiring from the military.
I always,
Yeah.
this is beating a dead horse for these, but I'm always amazed at, like, when I came in, um, starting off with like the Vietnam soldiers at the
Hmm.
beginning of the war,
Yeah.
and then by the time I retired, the soldiers were younger than my kids, and now
Yeah.
you've got a kid who's about to retire. I mean, that's like, but
It's wild.
what a cool legacy though. I mean,
Oh yeah.
your family has really, especially on
It,
the guard side, that's very
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. It gets better than that. We deployed together. So that's getting a little ahead of the story. Let's back up a little bit.
Yeah, because I'm definitely,
Yeah.
going to have some questions
Right.
before deployment. That
So came up here. I bounced around to the different guard units up until 99, 98, 99. And so that year I put in my packet. It was the year I was going to make E7. I had had 2 years of ratings on my NCOERs as a platoon sergeant. And so it's like, this is my year. I'm going to get promoted. It's going to be great. No problem. The board came out and went from top of the list 1 year to the very bottom of the list next year, just barely above the cutoff line. And it's like, what the? There's no way. Because I went now, reviewed it, and all my NCOERs in track, got everything squared away. And my company commander looked into it because he's like, why? This is wrong, because he knew that I should have been promoted up. And he found out that the packet that they reviewed for promotion packet, there was not a single NCOER in my packet. So
oh
somebody screwed up. And
oh
so there was nothing in there. It's like, that's it, I'm done. F this, F that. I am out of here. You guys lost a good soldier because of this new board program. Because this is when STIPA was just starting to take over. So like I made E6 through the promotion board, go sit in front of the board, hello, president of the board, all that kind of stuff. And then after that, it was all paperwork. You never went into it. So you didn't know. And so, you know, so I got out. I mean, I talked to captains, majors, full board colonel from recruiting tension came down. Somebody from the chief of staff came over. I didn't know any of these people. I was at E6 out and
uh,
about doing my thing, but everybody came in there because they didn't want me to leave. because we were hemorrhaging people at that time. You know, in the 90s, the economy was booming, and so nobody was joining the guard, and so they're
Well, and
trying
that
to keep everybody in the guard.
in active duty was also
Was there on a riff?
but they were,
Right.
yeah, I was gonna say they were putting people out, like paying people
Yeah,
to take early outs. So it was that was a
yeah,
rough time for military careers
right,
all the way around.
yeah. So I got out. I got completely out in 2000, and then I screwed my back up on the civilian side. So I was off work for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, and then we'll get into it. You had mentioned about 9/11. Uh, I was sitting on my couch watching the news. I got my wife into bed because she worked nights, so she came home from work, and we kind of got all the kids all together and everything. No, she was working days then because I got her out of the house, and I got the kids off to school, and I sat down with a cup of coffee and was watching the news, and then watched the planes hit the tower on the news live, and it was just wild, absolutely wild. I couldn't believe it. So after that happened, I gave it about a month, let everything kind of settle down, see where everything was going. I mean, it just everything just blew up, all outrage over it. You remember everything going on with it. And then I went back to Alpha 3 of the 161 to go talk to them about coming back into the guard. And by that time, everybody I knew was gone. So all the AGRs were gone. It's a whole new group of AGRs there. And so I was talking to them, and they're like, well, we really don't have any room for an E6 squad leader or anything like that. And I, okay, all right. And so what other units are on here? And it's like, well, you go talk to Vic down in Bravo Company. I go, Vic White? Goes, yeah. Oh, I know Vic. Vic and I are best buds. So I walked down the hill to Bravo Company in the same Kent Armory complex there, and I talked to Vic, and I mean, I don't think I've been in that chair more than 30 seconds. I said, hey, Ross, I need you down here. And started first class Ross from recruiting, sat down there, did the paperwork, and had me in that afternoon. And
You
that got
didn't.
me back into the guard.
How long was your separation?
About a year and a half,
So you didn't
almost
have
two
to.
years.
So you didn't have to go back for basic and all that stuff. You
No,
had that. They
no,
just brought you
none of
right
that.
back
They
in.
just brought me straight back in. And yeah, so
Could you and you did,
February of 2002, I was back in the guard.
so you had to know that we were probably going to be getting activated or
Possible, possible. I wasn't positive about it because knowing how the guard works. So you mentioned Desert Storm before. I was in the guard when Desert Storm kicked off, and so I called up my uncle as well. He's kind of high up in the state of California, and I go, hey, you know, what's the odds of us getting activated? He goes, what unit you in? It's like 184th, and he chuckled for a minute. He's like, no, you guys are sitting about 40% strength. There's no way you're going anywhere.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything. Yeah, at a minimum, they might put a list out calling out for volunteers, and you can volunteer to go with another unit. So just listen to your commander, and they'll put it out. But as far as that unit activation, it's like there's no way there's going. So yeah, we were just way under strength. My company has 62 people at AT.
So you were.
That's incredible. Out of a supposedly 118 man company.
It was. I. Well, those are some of the things I remember when I was first, because I came in at 2000 in 2000. Went to my first AT 2001. I had just got back from basic and AIT,
Mhm.
and went to on the first annual training where they had uh, switched out the howitzers to the paladins,
Okay.
and it was we were very short-handed. I didn't understand anything about, you know uh, strength and readiness at that point,
Right.
and didn't realize that, oh, you have 4 HIMMETs, but you've only got 4 people to operate them. You're short, 4 people or 6 people,
Yep.
whatever the
Exactly.
amounts
Yeah.
are, and it was learned a lot real quick. Some of the differences between having come from that active piece for that first 6 months to coming into the guard, but at the same time, I know it was a strange transition of the people who were after 9/11 that were either trying to get out, or all the people that were trying to get in, because there, there,
Yes.
there was a big surge of people trying to come back in to serve after the towers got hit.
Yeah. There was a lot of people who came in um, right about that time. Yeah. I remember just watching it swell up with just a whole bunch of new privates coming in during those years up to the deployment. So yeah, the first deployment in '03.
So now, were
Yeah.
you trapped at Fort Lewis with the rest of us, or
Yep.
were you okay? So
Nope.
that was that.
I was
Okay.
at Fort Lewis doing all the ridiculous training, but I was doing ADOS at the time with Vic and working ADOS at the Armory in Kent. And so when the order came down, I was the one that was calling everybody. Say, hey, we're getting mobilized. Show up this date, this time. Come with all your gear, get ready to go. We were getting mobilized, and so I got to listen to every excuse in the book on why I'm not going. I mean, I literally heard I signed up for college. I didn't sign up to go to war. No, you signed up to go to war. College is a benefit of you signing up, not the reason for signing up.
And that was honestly some of the
Yeah,
worst soldiers on the deployment were the ones that were like all of a sudden. I mean,
some of them,
it was.
some of them. There was a couple of them. There's one kid that was upset about it, but he came off of active duty into the guard, and he's like, "No, this is a breach of contract. I wasn't supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to be going to college and all that." And after explaining to him, it's like, "No, you signed the contract with this unit. You're going with us no matter what." So, all right, fine. All right. So I need like 5 days. So I go down to Orange County, California, and get my stuff out of my house. Because he was up here going to UW, I think, and one of the colleges up here. It's like, you got to report in on this day, and then we'll talk to the commander first start about cutting you loose. And we did. They cut him loose, go down to California, get all the stuff together, and get it back up here, and get his affairs in order, and all that kind of stuff. And that E4 kid, he absolutely made bank over there. BAH in I can't remember what city it was, but it's down there in the LA area.
Well, as soon as you said Orange County,
Yeah,
I was thinking that's got to be like
yeah.
as good or better than King County
Oh
in
yeah, no, it
Seattle,
was way
because
better.
I knew
He pulled
specialists that were.
$2,400 a month as an E4 on his BAH.
Wow.
Yeah, he used his mom's address.
And
Well,
this
his
is
his home address where he grew up. He used his address. It's just being his home of record.
and this is in
So
2003. Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
no, he made more money on BAH than he did on his paycheck. No,
That's
no, I was like, good for you. Good for you. I mean, because he really did get kind of screwed. I mean, the only reason he came in for the guard is because he could have some sort of paycheck while he was going to school up here. And I mean, that was it. 'Cause he already had his GI Bill that he was using, so he didn't need to be in the guard for that. So yeah, he kind of got screwed coming off active duty, but he turned
well.
out to be a great soldier.
I
I mean,
I think
there's
about
nothing.
the ones who came like from the Air Force and the Marines that were
Mm.
doing the try one,
Oh yeah,
and got caught up in that. Happened to. It was like, yeah, I was just going to try this for a
yep,
year to see what it was
yeah.
like.
He
It's like, oh,
he was
you're going to try it for a year. You're
yeah
gonna, but
yeah
it's
he
going to
was on
be
try one.
deployed.
He was one of those guys.
Oh
Yeah,
wow,
I mean, he literally did
wow.
it just so he could go to college. But And there's
but at
quite a few
least,
guys that did
but he did it.
that.
He did his duty without
Oh yeah, no, no, no.
making it terrible for everybody else.
No, he bitched and moaned and complained, and we talked about it, and then he talked to the commander of the first sergeant about it on the day that we reported in, and he reported in ready to go, and so he had that one-on-one conversation with them. Then after that, never heard about it again.
Oh wow.
He never bitched about it, never moaned,
Okay,
nothing. I mean,
that's
they did everything they could to help him out, like making sure he had time to go get his affairs in order in Southern California, make sure his paperwork showed that he still lived in Southern California so he can get the good BAH. They hooked him up as much as they could, but you were going. That's just the way it goes. And there's a few guys that I remember on the deployment that bitched about it, and I shouldn't be here through the whole thing. But they're the typical dirt bags that would have been they bitch about AT in Yakima. You know, they just they're just gonna bitch to bitch. That's just the way they were. So I mean, for the most part, the guys were all excited about it. So
I know AT. It was always interesting. AT like was the one thing that you were really, needed to be there for, and it was the biggest fight with some of the individuals to get
mhm.
them to show up and have their gear, have their equipment. It was
Right.
yeah, it was good
What do you
times.
mean you got one pair of socks? Oh no, no. Right.
So you get in, you get your what? When did you get your activation order? Like what were you doing when you got the warrant, or were you already on ADOS
I was
when
on ADOS.
you were already
So
on
I was
ADOS when?
guard bumming because my back was screwed up, and so they were just getting ready to release me to go back to work, and so um, I was they released me to go back to work. I was on ADOS orders, working at the unit, and had a decision to make to either try and find another civilian job, or because I wasn't going to go, I had to find something else, or go to college. I never went to college because there's no way I could have gone back to framing houses. My back was not going to hold up to it at all. So you had mentioned that earlier when we were talking outside about the Army being easier on you than working in the lumber industry. That's the way it was for me coming on back into the guard and going on active duty later on. Is it was physically easier on my body than working framing, working construction, because I destroyed my body when I was younger. And I'm still paying for it now. I still got back problems and this, that, and the other. But
And I
so
think most folks that have done, whether you've done logging or construction or concrete work,
non physical labor, yeah.
will agree that yeah, there's a lot of stuff you do in the military, but it's not that 8 to 12 hours a day in those bent positions or lifting stuff over your,
Right.
it's not, it's a completely different, uh and especially if you're in a unit where you have, anywhere from 2 to 10 people to help you with the efforts of getting things moved. It's just it's a lot easier on your system.
It is. It can be. And you get you're
Well, now
more physical.
I say that, but
Yeah.
you were in an infantry unit,
Oh, I
so
was in the
you guys
infantry.
are packing like ridiculous amounts of gear.
Yeah, guys complain about that. We're mechanized.
Oh, okay, okay.
But
So that
we're mechanized infantry. So
for those that don't know, mechanized means that you have certain pieces of equipment that you can actually put your gear on. You're not carrying absolutely everything you own with you into the field,
yes, we
but
had mobile homes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So yeah. So the first deployment was pretty good as far as deployments can go. I mean, there are some rough times here and there about it. We were assigned to, well, let's back up a second. First Battalion 161, which is what we had eventually been redesignated as at that time. We got kicked out of the brigade and attached to, I can't remember the brigade we were attached to. It'll come to me eventually. And then Bravo, one of the 161, was kicked out of the battalion, and we were attached to 3/8 Cav. So we reported to two masters, which Captain Bettle and First Sergeant Nunn absolutely despise. Because now you got two commands that you got to report up to all the time because everybody wants to know everything that's going on. But
Twice the word.
yeah, yeah. So we were attached to 3/8 Cav, and we are doing green zone security with our primary responsibility is Al Rashid and the government center. I can't remember the name of it, but the Parliament Center where they held all the meetings to rebuild the government. That was our main security focus while we were there. So.
And how long were you there?
Oh, we were there a full year.
Full year.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a full 1 year rotation on the ground, and so we manned.
Did you go to NTC before
Yep.
you deployed? Okay.
Yeah, so we went through the same, went with the brigade on the first deployment,
Well, the
all the
different
way up to when we hit Iraq.
the difference with just about everybody went to NTC except us because we went straight to Kuwait. 2146 went straight to Kuwait.
Yes.
Everybody
Yeah.
else came behind us by at least 30 days. I want to say we're 30 days behind
Yeah,
us.
it
coming
was
in.
about 30 days.
And we missed the joy of NTC, but
Yeah, we brought the snow and the rain to NTC.
yeah,
Yeah, that was fun.
it was always one of those things that was always fascinating about that deployment was I remember being at YTC in Yakima in at least a foot of snow doing desert training.
Yep.
You know, just you're like you're trying, especially live fire exercises, you're trying not to flag or shoot your own people, but you're trying to get to your targets while you're stepping over this snow to get to, it was just a
Oh, it was miserable.
freezing in the, like, if you were lucky enough to be able to get into a Humvee to stay warm in between ranges. I mean, that was like the best, and people don't understand just how great. That doesn't matter how leaky, how old the Humvee was. If it was on and had a heater, that was like a gift.
Yep.
That was just a gift.
Yeah, we hung out in Fenton's Bradley as much as possible because Sergeant Fenton's Bradley had the heater that worked the best. There's little things like that kind of come up. I remember we had one of our battery sets went down in the Bradley, and so it was so cold that we were just rotating guys out there 5 minutes, taking as much apart as you can in 5 minutes in heat. Next guy went out and warmed up, just kind of circulating through. Just to change a set of batteries took us like 2 hours. But I mean, it was miserable cold then, and I do not do cold. I don't like cold. I hate it with an absolute passion. Being in Iraq for that year really opened my eyes at how much I like the heat. I mean, it was 110, 115 degrees out there. I was comfortable. And that's weird, I know, but I was comfortable.
I don't miss it. Either deployment. I remember being, especially when I was at the S pod doing security there. It got into the 120s, but you would have 90% humidity, and you would just every pore you would just be soaked in sweat. And then that next morning, when you go to get your BDU top, it would be standing in salt. It was like you just starched it. It was just a crispy, I don't miss it. I don't miss it at all. It's like, but I will say the one thing about after being home, um, I could see myself being a snowbird. Going to Arizona in the winters and coming back home for the summers, because it just, but no, you folks that like that 100 and something plus degree weather, you're built different. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, no, I like the heat. I'd much prefer to be somewhere warmer, but my wife and the kids and my grandkids, I mean, they're here, and
those little voices.
we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's no way I'm going to pull my wife away from being 15 minutes from the grandkids. It's like I couldn't get her to move an hour away now. So,
Well, at least you pick eh, probably one of the most beautiful areas in the state, to live. This whole
oh
section
yeah,
of the state is great.
yeah, I like it, and it really surprised me because living down in Shelton, we're out of the rain shadow, and so we actually get more sunshine down there than you do here.
I can believe it.
Yeah.
I can believe
It's
it.
just far enough south that it's just starting to get more sun as it goes down through there. Kind of like living in Chehalis. It's the same weather pattern as being in Chehalis, which is completely different than Port Orchard, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
just half hour up the road. That's amazing, just the weather difference in that half hour drive.
Even here, I'm about 20 minutes from Bremerton proper,
Right.
but we will have 2 feet of snow here,
Hmm.
and they won't have any. And
Right.
I mean, just that little shift in elevation and distance is like we get, for whatever reason, we get all the snow here, and they miss out on it. We'll be like, if the plows don't come through, we can't go to work from here.
Right.
So it's no, but it still would not trade this for anything. It's a good.
It's a, it's good, beautiful country up through here. It really is.
Now, when do you get your E7?
Uh, so I got my E7 after I became AGR. So we deployed, we came back, and it's like, all right, now what am I going to do? I got no civilian job to go to. I cannot go back into framing, which I've done for the last 15 years, pretty much my whole adult life. That's what I was doing, was working construction. So what am I going to do? It's like, oh well, I'm going to become an AGR and see what happens. So I put in 20 applications for AGR positions, and this was wild because they had a mass board for like 20 positions. I remember walking into the interview, and there's probably about 50 of us all out milling around, all applying for these positions. And I applied for 4 different positions specific. I applied for readiness NCO, or 2 training NCO, and 2 supply jobs, all in 161. And so I went in there, I sat down in a chair, and there was 4 tables, 4 8-foot long tables with people all the way through there. So you do your interview process, and this person's asking a question, and that person's asking a question, and that person's asking a question. So it was a little awkward and weird, but I got an AGR gig out of it. So I got the supply job in Moses Lake, which was Charlie one of the 161. And then as soon as I got there, we reflagged again to Bravo one of the 161, which is the unit I just left, which was weird.
Had you already
So
moved? Had you
yeah,
already? Oh,
yeah.
dang!
So
Oh,
we
dang!
packed up when I put in the applications for the full time job. I talked to my kids, and they were both in, one was junior high and one in high school. So they're old enough to understand everything. So my kids were old enough to understand everything and I went through on a deployment and living without me and all that kind of stuff. Was I think it was better because they were older, they can take care of themselves. I mean, my son was driving when I left, so he was able to help out with my daughter and everything else, running around or whatever, and yeah, actually be beneficial. So my wife wasn't left alone with 2 small kids to take care of, and so that was a real huge advantage for me. I didn't have to worry about them back home. But so when I did the AGR thing, it's like there's a chance this could take us to the other side of the state, which means packing up and moving. You guys okay with that? And it's like, well, you need a job, Dad. All right, but we all understood it. And so then I got the AGR job in Moses Lake and packed up. My son got himself a new girlfriend, and my daughter realized she was leaving all her friends, and so it was kicking and screaming all the way to Moses Lake. So that was quite the adventure. But everybody got over it. Everybody accepted accepted the move, and then as soon as my son graduated high school, he was out back here, and then back with his girlfriend in Port Orchard, which
Well,
worked out well because they were married and 2 kids.
right on.
So yeah,
Right
everything
on.
worked out well for them. Then my daughter, she graduated there in Moses Lake, went to college in Moses Lake, and then she packed up and moved over to this side, and then let's see, we were in Moses Lake till 2012, and then I got my promotion to sergeant first class and moved to Spokane with one of the 161. That was the
Okay. Yeah.
Spokane
I
as
was
for
like,
that was where the Spokane headquarters was, where the one of the 161 headquarters was. So that's where I made my E7, and then was there for 6 years. I wanted to retire there. I loved it. I loved the snow. I loved the heat in the summertime. We had
but that's a different. You still have trees over
yes,
there. You
we
still
had
have
trees.
grass.
It
You
wasn't
know,
desert.
it
I mean,
wasn't.
it's
Yeah.
trees. Um, we had a 2-story cabin on 10 acres on the side of a hill with wild turkey and deer walking up to the front door. I absolutely loved it over there. And then they transferred me to Joint Force Headquarters. They said, "You're not going to stay here." All right.
Yeah.
So I went to Joint Force Headquarters and was there for a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. Then I got my E8 back to brigade as Brigade S4.
Now
So
that's got to be tough because you're you're leaving another area that's kind of like God's country, but and then you're having to be at Camp Murray. Uh, is that
yes,
or were you okay?
yeah, it was Camp Murray.
Okay, so
Yeah.
did you move to Tacoma or
No,
did you
no,
commute
we
from?
moved out to Shelton
Okay,
because when we moved from Spokane,
it's a lousy commute, but
right?
it's better than living in right by post.
Yeah,
It's like
but I also
mm,
knew that this lateral move to Joint Force Headquarters, I was either going to retire out of there as an E7, or if I got promoted, it was going to be at Camp Murray anyway, because all the 92 Yankee E8 positions are on Camp Murray and Fort Lewis. The aviation is over on Fort Lewis. So knowing that, when we moved over, we're like, okay, where are we going to retire? And so we started looking for a retirement house, not a let's move over here and live for a little bit, and then figure that out later. It was at that point in my career that I knew we were close to retirement. And so we looked around. Um, Originally wanted to go back to Port Orchard. And we were there for 11 years. That's where the kids grew up, basically. And absolutely loved living there, but the prices were absolutely insane. I couldn't believe it coming back, how much it had changed, and the prices were ridiculous. And then I looked at that commute going across the Narrows Bridge to Fort Lewis and said, no. So we started looking south. So we looked all the way down to Chehalis and Rochester, and then over to Shelton. So always liked the Shelton area because we've been through there a whole bunch of times. Seems like a nice area and all that. And so we got a real estate agent, and we did. It's like, all right, here's Fort Lewis. Give me 45 minutes to an hour commute with around Fort Lewis, Camp Murray, or south of Fort Lewis, Camp Murray. I went nothing north. And she found a place in Shelton, and that's where we're at.
nice.
And so it's a nice little place, 4 acres. It's like 4.3 acres. And it's quiet. Neighbors are quiet. We're the loud ones, and we're an old retired couple. So, yeah.
Now you've been. Let's go back a little bit further. Deploy. How many times did you deploy?
Twice.
Twice.
Yep. So I deployed the first time, 11 Bravo, came back, AGR, and I deployed a second time as a 92 Yankee supply sergeant with Bravo Company. And at this point, my son was in the Guard. So my son was in the Guard with me, and we had the very specific conversation about being in the same unit, being deployed. and because our deployment was going to be a convoy security and have a home station base on LSA Anaconda or JBB, Joint Base Blood, um, my position doesn't leave the wire. And so I'm not going out on missions. It was fine to have my son and I be in the same unit. That's what was determined. I was like, fine, that's good. And so he was a medic with me on that deployment. And then my brother Patrick was still in, and he was with 2 of the 146. And then my cousin Chuck Leiter, he came into the Guard, and so he deployed with us. So I got a picture at home. I should share it back on Facebook with you of myself, my son, my brother, and my cousin all in Kuwait just before we went into Iraq.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
That is outstanding. We had the opportunity to be stationed with a group from Tennessee that actually had a grandfather, dad, and son in it, and I
Oof.
was just like, yeah, I was like,
That grandpa thing would be hard to do.
well, yeah,
That's
it
like
was,
getting married at 15.
yeah, it's like
It is Tennessee, though.
it was, and stereotypes are true. I'm just not always, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying in this case they were. But it was still kind of a neat, unique. That's one of those things with the Guard that is, I
Oh
think,
yeah.
way different than the active duty
Oh
component.
yeah. I think every unit I have ever been in has had at least brothers, if not brothers and cousins, nephews and father daughter. It's like I've known a lot of father daughters, father sons.
The different commanders over the last my last probably 2 3 years that I was in, how many had been like young lieutenants or captains that were now colonels or light colonels, and their kids were
Yep.
in serving now, and I was just amazed at how many there were, and
Oh yeah.
it was kind of cool to see that generational piece continuing on.
Yeah, and you see it more in the Guard because we're all in the state of Washington. So the Guard, whatever state you happen to be in, even though you can do an interstate transfer, that's actually fairly rare. Most of them is like you'll grow up in that unit. So I was like my very first unit in the 579th Engineers, the AGRs in that unit. The At the time he was a supply sergeant, but he started out as the admin NCO as an E5, went to the supply sergeant, no, admin NCO as a corporal, went to the supply sergeant as an E5, got promoted, no, training NCO. Training NCO as an E5. So they had admin as E4, training as an E5, supply as an E6, readiness as an E7. He spent his entire career in that company.
That's wild.
That is wild.
That is
That is wild. Now, that was in the 80s.
Yeah.
So it's a whole lot different than it is today. But yeah, it was wild. But you would see that closeness a whole lot more with the Guard because everybody's going to join up in their hometown most of the time. And if they don't ever move out of their hometown, they're there. Yeah, they may end up going, growing up and graduating high school in Moses Lake and then joining the Guard. And then as they work their way up the Guard, have to go to Spokane and drill for a few years as they're, because that's where they got the promotion at or whatever case may be.
That was
or bouncing around and all that. But they're still in Moses Lake.
it was service battery was like that when I was in or Centralia, but how many of us actually lived within 15 to 30 minutes from the armory? There was a lot of us down there, so I always thought that was kind of well, and there used to be the maintenance shop at Centralia, so a lot of the maintenance team technicians also lived fairly close to the area.
Yeah, I used to like those days when you had the maintenance company. Wasn't a maintenance company. You had a maintenance platoon in your company. So our headquarters platoon back in the day had 2 squads of your mechanics, had a squad of the cooks, and had a squad of the medics. And that was your headquarters platoon along with the supply sergeant and the armor and the admin NCO and all that kind of stuff. that was your headquarters within the company. So I think it made a huge difference in the quality of service that you got as a unit from the support service, because your sergeant cook in a unit, if he makes a bad meal, he's standing next to that guy he just fed in that formation.
Yeah.
So that's a huge difference, and you get to know them, be able to work back and forth a whole lot better at it. So I don't know if you saw it so much, but when the service battery went away and it went to the FSC concept, the forward support companies, and now that entire battalion is out here, and then they slice out to you. When that concept came up, I was a supply sergeant, and having to deal with that on a daily basis was just a huge nightmare, and I hated it. I just absolutely despised it because
I
they were serving two bosses again. You had your forward support company commander and your infantry company commander. So he's expecting you to be in his unit and working the maintenance of his unit. The FSC commander is expecting them to be in their unit doing what they're supposed to be doing in the unit, and then kind of sort of going and working over there. So that was a huge headache, and it took probably 2 or 3 years to kind of work that out.
I missed out on that because they were doing it as as service battery was going away and got converted over to 181.
Mm-hmm.
I had went into recruiting,
Oh, okay.
and so I missed that changeover.
Yeah.
I was there as they did it on paper.
Okay.
I think technically, if you look at my 2-1, it might show that I was I don't know, a month or 2 months in 181. But went to recruiting, and from recruiting I went to aviation. And when you, and the way that aviation ran was so different from the way the line units ran, because everything was focused on the birds.
Right.
And it was like, I think that was a trouble that like any of the guys who came from the line units to aviation would have that challenge of like, hey, we got, it's like, forget what you know.
Right.
Forget what you know, because it's about getting those birds in the air. And if you do anything that compromises that mission, because they had to always be within I forget what you call it, but it was similar like to the special forces, in the sense those aviation units had to be ready to deploy within like a 90
Right.
to 60 day or 90 to 6 month period, um,
Mm-hmm.
where your line unit could go a couple years without
Oh yeah.
being,
Yeah, being in a combat arms and National Guard up until 9/11, you weren't deployed ever.
yeah, that was
They just you weren't deployed.
uh, that
If you were deployed, because my stepdad was deployed during Vietnam as a tanker, they didn't go to Vietnam. He went to Watts, and he was down there for the riots, and that's where he spent his deployment. And so the infantry and the combat arms weren't deployed to go to combat. They were deployed to backfill during the riot control in his case, or they get sent to a active duty base to backfill the units that are leaving there, something like that. So most states were like, no, I'm not sending my guys to go be security guards at Fort Hood. That's not going to happen. So the guard unit combat arms just weren't deployed. Now, some of the other ones, aviation, constantly deployed. Transportation companies, I think 1161st out of Ephrata is still the most deployed company in the state of Washington,
wow, wow,
because
yeah, I
their
get, yeah,
transportation,
it's
they were, long before 9/11, they were getting deployed. They went to Desert Storm. I mean, there's a whole lot more other deployments that they've been on a regular rotation.
you
So it
have a
depends on the
unique
unit.
perspective, in the sense that you got you got to see that old system the way that it was, watch that trend, because I stepped in shortly before 9/11. So I really came, I'll be honest, I had, I think a lot of the guys that I came in with, we had more of an active duty mindset, coming
Oh
in,
yeah.
just
No,
because it
it
was
was a
like we're
huge
fresh,
difference.
we're fresh out of basic and AIT. Oh, and we're getting deployed now. Oh, okay, it's just okay. I'll put my job or life on the side and just be
Yeah.
back to the grind again. Um, where a lot of folks we met hadn't, except for, and I'll say this, except for the folks that were the Vietnam vets, there was a lot of folks that were like, oh wow, this is, we really got to be doing our job now, or we really
Right.
got to be in this mode, and watching that change. I gotta
Yeah.
ask, how did you how did you feel a couple months ago when they finally said that, hey, GWOT missions are over. Global war on terrorism is technically, that phase is done after 20 plus years. 20,
Yeah.
what, 24 years, I believe. Um,
It-
we our little section of history has stopped.
yeah, the
It's
book closed.
it's
Yeah.
and I think that was part of the reason when I first started this. Not that it was technically over yet, but I felt like a lot of our, especially as the people that we have deployed with have been passing away, I feel like a lot of our stories are
Yeah.
being lost, or gone, and it's like we're now watching this this new administration, this new change with the Army and how it's going. Um, what are some things that you would be telling soldiers now, like, hey, here's some things that you need to be preparing yourself for. And I'm talking in leadership. I'll be picking your brain on other things
Mm.
too, because we also had that change of, I was one of the last to go out without the new blended retirement system.
Mhm.
I had that old school where you had to get 20 years in to get your guard
Right.
retirement.
Yeah, that's
Um,
what I'm on. Yep.
so it's the new kids. They're on this. It's basically like a 401k now when they come
Yeah,
in.
it's a 401k, and I think they can actually start drawing it in like 16 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's not like the full amount to get. I think you start drawing in like 16 years, and then fully invested like a 401k at 20, and then get the full amount that's authorized at 3, and then it goes up from there past 20. But that's just a guess on my part, because when they came out with that, it was just like, no, I'm not even going to touch it. I was already on my retirement track and had everything set up and planned, and it wouldn't have made any difference because I wouldn't have had enough years put into it to make a difference.
Same,
Yeah.
same.
So it just, now forget it. Doesn't matter to me. So I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it.
I was just
But
excited. I was excited for the
yeah,
young ones coming in, that were, because we how many soldiers did we see 15, 17 years, and
yeah, and they
and
get
had to,
out with nothing.
with nothing.
Yeah.
And now at
Yep.
least these young ones are going to have something to,
Right.
that they're putting in the bank, or
Yeah. So a lot of the guard guys from when I got in back in '86 were that way. They got out of the military from Vietnam or just serving in the military, at 6, 10, 15 years. They just got out and had nothing. So they came into the guard to get that guard retirement and that medical care and all that kind of stuff. So they were doing their 5, 6 years. When I first joined, that was the majority of people in my unit. We're all there just to make it to 20 years and get to retirement. That was probably about 2/3 of the unit. And but it was crazy back in the '80s because I mean we had guys in there with mustaches that are bigger than yours and mine. I mean just
I
huge,
I had
like
heard.
way out of regulations, and nobody cared.
Well, look at all
But
the First Blood and
yeah.
Night of the Living Dead movie. Anytime that they showed the guard in there, it was
Oh
always
yeah,
like they were just
it's
like
not
this
a
close.
character.
It's
It's
not
not
a
a
character.
character.
It's
It was
it was.
literally that way. But so I mean, just watching it transition though, I look at it as it transitioned back to being a professional military service. I mean, I started out in the Guard in the '80s, where my first drill was a land nav at night. Cool shit, right? So I was a brand new private, not knowing anything. I hadn't even gone to basic yet. And it's like, all right, whatever you do, don't let go of the rucksack in front of you. So I mean, I got a hold of my teammate right in front of me, and all of a sudden we're running. I mean, running, sprinting, pitch black. And we stop, and then we start running again, and then we stop. And it was just we stopped because he was checking his map, make sure we're going the right direction, and take off running again. It's like, why are we running? And we get up there, and there's a big bonfire, everything. My squadron's like, God damn motherfucker, throwing stuff around because he was not there to tap the keg. That was my first drill. Was Nightland Ave to a point. The point was where the keg was at, and we drank beer all night there and camped out. And the next morning, we packed up and went home. That was my introduction to the guard. There's no way you could do that now.
No.
So just watching it transition and go through from that point where we literally had a bar in the armory. I mean, there, one of the classrooms was a bar with the actual bar and
the soda
the,
machine,
the,
soda machine
those
that was
sodas.
actually a beer dispenser.
Yeah,
It was, yeah.
you know, the big mirrors on the back. It was a bar, a pool table, the whole 9 yards. And so we went from that to middle weekends, where we had middle weekend was, you know, I had a big party, whether it's company party or battalion party or whatever, was there in Yakima. It was on that Saturday night, and then Sunday you know, kind of clean up and everything, and then you go back to work on Sunday afternoon, Monday, back to your training, whatever it was, to end of party, end of AT barbecue. And so that was a big drunk fest, more or less, on that Saturday. And then Sunday morning, you got up, got on the bus, all hung over, and went back to your units. Now it's the end of AT to no, you're not drinking at all. And you actually got all this business to do and actually working all the way through it and doing your mission during drills and annual training. And seeing that transition going through, it's like, oh, this is bullshit. No, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. Then it's just like, okay, this kind of makes sense. This makes sense. Holy crap, we're actually professional armory now. And it was a wild transition thinking back on it, because about that time that we were back to being professionals again, the way it should be, is when we got deployed to go to Iraq. And so it's just like the timeline working back up to that, going through that change. It's like, all right, there's a reason why we're professional, and we should be doing this training the way it's supposed to be done, because we could get deployed, and oh yeah, we're getting deployed to Iraq.
I feel like I get that was the cool thing about coming in when I did, was because I got to experience that before it ended, and see that transition. Because like I said, as the war was kicking off,
Mm-hmm.
I got to see more of that active duty mindset coming in, for good or bad. You know, the pieces
Yeah,
that I got
and
to see of it.
there is some bad with active duty mindset, because there was a lot of guys come off active duty into the card that had a culture shock, and it took a little bit of transition, but they rubbed off on us too. And so in actually doing it, because everything that I had done in my career was play hard. Yeah, we drank a lot, we partied a lot, we had our middle weekends, but we also worked really hard in between. And so it's always working our best to excel on the Bradley Rangers, you know, or when I was with the engineers, you know, we went and trained. We had a competition with the I can't remember which active duty engineers. It was a competition, and it was common task skills competition, almost like an EIB, but for 12 Bravos. And they did theirs, and we did ours, and we absolutely smoked them across the board, like every one of them. And we're a bunch of has been, you know, Vietnam era new privates partying. I mean, drug use out the ass. It was horrible. It was really really bad. And so it was weird to see that, but because they had that Vietnam soldier mentality in there, it's just like, yeah, sure, you're gonna party, but come at 6 o'clock in the morning, you're standing in formation, and we're doing our job, and we're doing it right the first time.
or or you're doing PT on Sunday after you'd been up the
Yeah.
night or do it.
Right.
All the memes and all the jokes are true. It's like,
Oh yeah.
hey, have as much fun as you want. You're still going to be at formation in the morning. You're
Yep.
still going to do that 2 mile run. You're still going to be, it
Right.
just and I think it was interesting by the time I left that some of these kids, and I will say it, kids, young men, young women.
They're all kids to us
Yeah, yeah.
now.
It was. I was like, I could not imagine them doing that. I could not imagine them being in those same settings that we were.
I don't
It
think
was.
they can handle it because
Yeah,
it's a different mentality. It really is.
yeah.
It's the whole the embrace the suck mentality, and I think that's missing in a lot of society today. Where this sucks. This is going to be absolutely miserable, but if you look at it, it's going to be miserable for this amount of time or this amount of time, and then if I do this misery now, it gets better. And so
That
I think that
delayed
that part,
delayed gratification.
delayed
It's a
gratification, yeah, it's all instant now. If you don't have instant gratification now, it's all over the younger generations. So it's like we're gonna get sidetracked on that, but just seeing it in the guard, I've seen it go back and forth because in the '90s when it was really really hard to get guys in the guard, we had some real dirt bags because anybody that was worth anything had a good job and had the life and the shit together and they were doing great. It was the guys that the recruiters went and signed out of jail in
mm,
order to get them to sign the paperwork and then they go back and finish their sentence up and then they get shipped off the basic because they didn't have that conviction on the record yet. That type of thing was going on at the time.
well, that
Yeah.
was a piece that was weird when we deployed at the beginning of the war,
Mm-hmm.
the '03. Like I remember people that were making bank on the civilian side
Yeah.
that were having to come in as E4s or privates, suddenly losing
Oh yeah.
their financial well being.
I had an
And
E4 as a bank manager.
yeah,
I mean, he
yeah,
was pulling 3-4 grand a week, and now he's got to come in on E4 pay. That's
yeah,
rough.
yeah.
That's
That's
rough.
that's why we recommend that you do promote as fast as you can, and I'm gonna say it.
Yep.
Consider going that officer or warrant route
Yeah,
as soon as you're
absolutely.
eligible. It's
But I mean, to be fair though, it was the guard that got him that job because he joined the guard for the college money, and then
yeah,
went to college, got his degree in finance, and then got the job. So it's a big circle event, and that's the part of the work ethic that you have to put into it is you got to embrace the suck sometimes. And for him, that suck was a year long. As soon as it was over, he was out. I mean, he did his tour, finished his enlistment. He got out, and I never heard or seen from him again. You know, but he was a great guy. I mean, he was one of my favorite soldiers because he was the kind of guy I could tell him to do anything, and he's like, all right, this sucks. Let's go do it. Because he knew that he only had to do it for so long, and then he'd be out and then back to his life again. And so,
see, it's nice when you can find the ones that had that mindset.
yeah, yeah. And then there was others that had that instant gratification. Even back, years ago, you can see it. That if it's not an instant deal, that then, I mean, we had a guy that was always trying side businesses while we were in Iraq. He was running side businesses. And so he had a smoothie stand in the convention center. It's like you gotta admire it, but at the same time though, he was hopping from this that to the other thing, always trying to pull him back. I mean,
Hey,
it's
I
like
made extra
yeah,
money on fire guard a lot of times, like especially on the weekends, like because I went into basic and AIT with 5 kids,
mhm,
so when all my fellow soldiers were off on their weekend pass, burning money for beer and hotels, they were paying me money to do their fire guard or their
right,
watch on the weekend. So
yeah,
I was making money through basic and AIT too. So it was I kind of admire that when somebody's
yeah,
like found a way to make a few extra bucks or selling your M&Ms for $5 out of your MREs. I made I made a few dollars
Yeah.
during my time, but during the deployments, and I'm gonna backtrack a little bit here
Mhm.
because I did not get to ask you best day and worst day deployed.
I think probably the worst day was when we got the news that Schaefer died. So Shaver, not Schaefer, Shaver. When Shaver died, just because it just kind of it slapped home, you know. I mean, there was close calls all throughout. We got mortared, we got shot at, but we didn't see any direct contact. My company did not go out and make contact and do combat ops like that. We were security. We did patrols, presence patrols, stuff like that, but we didn't get involved in any firefights or anything like that. So when we found out the Shaver had died, and then same thing with Jeremiah Schmonk, you know, you hear about those things and you know who those individuals are. That hits a little bit different because next day it could be you, it could be me, you know, that type of thing. So it was Shaver's the one that hit me hard. It's because I knew him, not real close. Kind of knew who he was. We worked
It's a
at different
small.
points. It's a small world.
It's
You know, it's like you know the guy in the next company. You know, you don't hang out with them, don't know who his family is or anything like that, but you know who that individual is because you've worked with them at some point. And then I don't know, best day. There really wasn't a best day there. I mean, I can say the day we came home, but you know, not really a good day there. Same with the second deployment. There really wasn't a good day. There's some funny moments, but I don't think you can have a best day while on deployment.
yeah. I don't. People always ask if you know would, uh, when they ask about it. I can tell them I'm proud to serve. I'm proud for what we did. Uh, would I do it again? It's kind of a loaded question. It's like uh, no, I would have gone aviation right out the gate, and you know,
Right.
there's certain life changes I would have made, but um, I would have wished that I could have had certain uh, well, some of the things I'll be asking you. I wish I'd have had better wisdom of how to handle certain situations better. I think I know you have to go through it. You have to learn the tough lessons, but
That's where the wisdom comes from. If you have the wisdom to avoid tough situations, you're not going to learn from that. So you're not going to gain the wisdom. It's a circular logic type deal. So,
who did you learn from? Who taught you?
for the most part, just me, myself, and I just doing dumbass shit. You know, I mean, I was one of those kids growing up. I had to do it, or it wasn't going to get done. And when I screwed it up, I fixed it and I did what I could. My stepdad had a big influence on that, and it wasn't neglect or yeah, I just do whatever you want, that type of thing. It's like no, you need to go do that, figure it out, and if you get stuck, then you come to me. You know, and so it would be a prime example was I bought a motorcycle for $50 when I was 14, 13, 14 years old, and I pushed it home with a box with the engine and all the parts in it. So it's literally just a puzzle. And I put it together and I'm going through it and I go and hit my dad up. And it's like, hey, I'm stuck on this point. And it's like, well, did you read the book? Motor Sergeant, remember, did you read the TM?
Yeah,
It's like, what TM? And all right. And we went down to auto parts store. We bought the Chilton manual for it and went back and says, read that and then come for help. And so that's what he taught me was you're self-reliant, you do your own thing, you figure it out, you use the resources that are available, and then when you get stuck, then you go find a guy that's done it before. That's your last resort. And so he had a saying that when all else fails, read the instructions. And so I used that in my tagline in my emails for years because especially as I got older and higher in rank and more position of authorities, these guys would come to me and ask me the stupidest questions. It's like, did you read the book? We have 1,000 TMs on this subject right here. Did you read that and figure it out first? No, no. All right. Well, I don't understand this in the book. Okay, let's work through this and explain it and why we're doing this or whatever the case may be. But teaching that self reliance because the resources are there, you have to be able to go out and find them and then be able to use them. So,
Did you find that challenging, especially on the supply side? Because one of the things I noticed is before I retired, it was getting harder and harder to get the TMs, to get the publications for the items that you needed. Um,
not
depending
not
depending
really.
depending on your unit, it was like
Well,
it was
everything went digital, and when it went digital, that's when it started becoming hard. Becoming hard. So we worked and we fought through as much as possible to get paper TMs to the units because guys were not keeping up with technology, and so they would rather read a book than look it up online or look it up on a computer. And when you're in the field, especially in the combat arms, you don't have a computer to look at. You need to have the physical manuals. And that was the argument I kept making, trying to get state and brigade at that time to order manuals for me and then get through there. So that was a little bit difficult. But for myself, growing up into the manual phase, I mean, going to NCOES schools before there were computers being used, we actually had all the manuals and the books and all that kind of stuff. And then transitioning over to it, it took a little bit of work. I mean, I worked construction for 15 years. And so I was 30 before I got on my first computer. You know, that's pretty late in life to get into computers. I mean, I touched them in high school, but for me in high school, it was like a typewriter. I didn't actually use it as a computer. But, getting into that and then that transition over the digital age and working with the Army in the digital, because the Army never keeps up on digits. It just doesn't. It's slow transition to anything and everything, which is a good thing because then you're not jumping head first into something that's really stupid. That always seems to happen though. But anyway, so yeah, the transition piece and the mentorship piece, it's trying to get people to use the resources that are available, no matter what type of resource it is.
and I think that's some of my point of like, hey soldier, I want you to learn this. I want you to read this on your own, check it.
Yep.
But when you can't get them the basic items that they need to succeed,
Right.
that's got to be. I mean,
That's frustrating.
it was very
It
frustrating.
was very frustrating, and it's just as frustrating, if not more frustrating, when they're coming to you or me as a supply sergeant, as the S4, trying to get those resources. Like I'm trying, I'm trying to get these to you. So it can be frustrating, but at the same time, though, it a lot of guys would absolutely hated the saying, but to me, it made sense. It is what it is. You know, there's only so much you can do. I mean,
Hey, doesn't matter. 1700. We're checking out anyhow. We're going home for the weekend. From the weekend,
it's not even that though. I mean, you get by, you do what needs to be done with the resource that you have available. If you can't get the right resources, you still have to do what has to be done. So you do your best job available, the best you can as you're going through that, and it is what it is. If it turns out to be a shit job or a shit, project at the end, at least have the ability to say, well, you guys didn't give me this, and this to work with, so this is what you get. This is the best I could do with the resources that I had.
I think the thing in the civilian life that I have tried to take with me is the AAR a little bit to explain, like, hey, here was what you wanted me to accomplish.
Right.
Here's what I was able to do with what we had. Here's how we could make this better.
Exactly.
That piece of it, and it's sometimes I'm amazed when in certain civilian situations when you hear them talking to the problem. It's like, why don't you just do an AAR on that together? Why don't you
Right.
discuss that problem together as a team to say, hey, here's what went wrong. Here's how we can make this better, or even better, here's what went great. Because I think too many times, especially on the civilian side, you don't hear, hey, here's what went great with this.
Now, you don't hear that on the military side as much as it should be either.
Yeah, I was gonna
There,
say
has been,
depending on your unit
yeah,
command, yeah,
there was times in the AARs, especially if I was running them, because there for a while I was training up to be a master gunner. I never made it though, but doing the Bradley crew evaluations, I always made it a point because Vic White told me to make it a point. And it's like, okay, that kind of makes sense. Start with the good stuff that won't happen. As you're doing an evaluation of the training event, start with the good things and then work into some of the things that they think they need to do better. And 9 times out of 10, what they think they need to be better is the exact same things you're going to talk to them about they need to improve. Because most people know what their mistakes are as they're doing them, and as they go through and they realize that. But it's too late. You can't instant backtrack. So yeah. So the aspect of using that part to where you're talking about the good things that happen, you guys did this great, and then working with them on what they think they need to, and then what you think they need to, and all that's going to line up, and everybody gets better.
So now you come into the 205th
Mm-hmm.
training regiment. Um, that had to be what drove that, because
Retirement.
retirement. Okay,
That was.
that was. I will say the same. I think for
Yeah.
me it was the opportunity to. I really wanted the second phase of ABIC
Yeah.
because I wanted to be able to teach before I left the military, and unfortunately that
Right.
didn't pan out. But
So
it was
I think that the biggest difference is I did not go to the 205th in a teaching or an instructor position. That wasn't my role with them. My role was the S4 doing logistics for the regiment. And so it's a different mindset, different mentality. And for me, it was my last stop, my retirement, my easy job. And I won't say that it was an easy
I was gonna
position
say
per se.
you're dealing with officer candidates from all over
Correct.
the
It,
state of the
it
U.S.
has its own nuances, and there's some difficult parts of that, but it's not a brigade. So I went from 81st Brigade
Yeah,
doing logistics with a huge crew. I mean, I had some fantastic S4 officers, some really great officers in there, but a good crew working around me at the Brigade S4 shop and doing the logistics with the SPO shop, the support out of 181 and all that. We had a real great group to handle that huge logistic piece for a brigade. But the S4 officer and myself as S4 NCO, even though we didn't have direct authority or anything like that, we're the ones that would answer to the colonel. That's it's as simple as that. The sergeant major and the colonel came to us when there was problems, so we managed everything going into that. So when it came down to it, that they transferred me over to 205th, it's just like, whoo, well, that was interesting. because it was a madhouse for about 2 years. And that's the only way to describe it. It's everything's constant busy. But getting over to 205th, it was nice to step back, relax a little bit, and then
feel like you could breathe.
yeah,
It was
I could breathe again. And then the problems at the 205th were the same problems that I dealt with at brigade, except they were so much smaller because you're dealing with less moving parts, less units, less personnel, and so it's just the piece to have to work is a lot smaller, and that makes a big difference. And 90% of the problems I ran into, I'd already ran into at brigade or at the battalion level in one of the 161. And so it made that job easier for me going in there and having that knowledge base already built up to make that job easy. I guess is the way I should put it. Not necessarily that it's an easy job, because I don't think there are any easy jobs in AGR system.
well, I was gonna say because you were when I retired in 2020 from
Mhm.
205th, and that was at the height of COVID.
Yeah,
We ran a schoolhouse during COVID.
yeah, that was
Watched
crazy.
some instructors and leadership get pulled out because they got COVID during the training exercise,
Mhm.
training with soldiers with masks on, training, knowing that we also had like a floor of soldiers who had also contracted COVID during the training, keeping them separated. That was probably one of the most difficult logistic uh, trainings for that particular cycle. I just remember the all the challenges of wearing our masks while
Mhm.
we're trying to get this equipment from whatever point A to point B, um, on top of everything with how the meals had to be done, how everything had to be. It was that was a very
It,
unique from the year
it
before.
was, yeah.
It was like, my goodness, this is. I mean,
It
I
made it more complex, but the steps are still the same. And I think that's the biggest thing that I look at whenever I'm tackling a project, because that's all it is just one project. You may have 5, 10, 15 projects going at one time, but everything is just one project. And so, you're talking about getting the food to that individual wing where you have 10 people that are on sick call. That's just one project. We do that all the time. We send out food to guys on guard duty separate. So it's just a logistics piece of figuring out that one project. And I think if you break it down that way, it makes things a lot simpler because it's this thing and it's this thing and it's this thing. But you know what? This thing is the same thing as we're doing this already now, but it's going to a different place, different quantities, different personnel. This is the same process as this thing over here that we're doing right now, different place, different people, different items. You know, the processes are the same, even though the scope and the size may vary and the item may vary in the differences. A lot of guys talk to me about it when we transitioned on some of the Bradleys, or like the tanks had the transition. I worked with that. I did the Bradley transitions to the ODS versions. I did the little bit. No, I didn't touch any of the Paladin stuff. That was in 161 at the time. But doing the striker transition too, going over there, and I was just at the beginning of that at the brigade level, but I didn't go through any of that because I moved to 205th. But as we're doing all the prelim stuff, we know this is coming down the pipe. The brigade getting all the information. That's what we're doing and all this stuff, and everybody's starting to freak out a little bit. And she's like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 stop! Do we turn in trucks?" Yeah, we turn in trucks probably about once a month. All right. That process is the exact same process as we're turning in the Bradleys. The process doesn't change. The timeline changes, the volume changes,
yeah,
And that's where the problems come in, because now you're not doing one truck a month, you're doing 110 in that month. And so that's where you look at the problem set, and is the process different? If it's a different process, or you got to come up with a process, ooh, all right, now you're in a different world. But if the process is the same, the steps are the same, doesn't really matter if it's going different locations or two different people. A, B, C. I still got to get buses, still got to get food, still got to get barracks. Whatever the case may be, the process changes no matter what unit you're in or how many you're working with. Once I figured that out at the battalion level, when I went to brigade, it's like, okay, we're dealing with bigger volume of numbers. The process is still the same. That's it.
Did you do you feel like you got to retire on your terms?
Oh, absolutely.
You got to.
Yeah. No, I had a plan. Um, when we came back from deployment, the first deployment, and I went into the AGR system, my wife, that's when we first started finding out my wife had lupus, and she has a whole bunch of heart problems that have come and gone over the years. Everything's stable now. We're not in any worries or anything like that. She's doing great. She's she got some good care, and everything's steady now. But coming back, and I joined the AGR system, and there was one goal, that was to retire. So I had no retirement, no benefits, no health benefits, no medical benefits. I mean, I had nothing. So I needed a job with good medical, and I needed a job with retirement. Everything else is just gravy. So coming into the AGR system, which still irritates me, they reduced me from an E6 to an E5 because I was not MOS qualified. That was a state policy, which makes no sense whatsoever. And I told the sergeant major about that. It was, I can't remember which sergeant major it was now, but it didn't matter. They're giving us the AGR brief and explain it to him. It's just like, hey, why am I getting reduced down to E5? It's like, well, that's the incentive for you to be E6. You go to the school, get your E6 back. It's like, okay, I'm on a year and a half probation. I can be removed from the AGR system if I don't complete school within a year and a half. That is correct. So why am I getting reduced to E5? That makes no sense. The job is the incentive.
Yeah.
The school is a requirement for the job. I'm here for the job. Why should I get reduced to E5 until I meet the same requirement that you can remove me from the job if I don't meet it?
And you had to be an E6 to get the position, right?
Or no.
Is it not? Okay.
No.
Okay. So it's
no. It was the E6 position though.
Okay. Okay.
Which makes it worse. If it was an E5 position that I applied for, I get it. I'm taking that reduction in rank. And so, actually, this is kind of funny because I got the job. I went from E6 to E5. In my reticence, I won't give his name because we did not get along well at all. He just got promoted to E7 and became my boss. And he was giving me a whole bunch of crap one day, just massive crap when we first got there started. And I went out there and I grabbed the E7 list and I threw it down in front of him. This right here, that's me at number 3. This right here, that's that you at number 16. I'll do my job, you do your job, we'll just be fucking dandy. Oh, sorry.
No.
And after that, we were great because he understood that he was not going to bully me around because I had the maturity and the chops, I guess, of being in a position to know what my worth was and where I was at in the whole pecking order thing, and understanding that it was an admin reduction, not because of something that I did. So I wasn't a piece of crap because I got reduced to E5. It's because the state is stupid with their policies. Sorry, state. No, I'm not sorry. It's still a stupid policy. But anyway, so
No,
that's how I worked up through there. And then the whole goal was to retire with the medical.
and that's a huge.
E7 was a bonus. Like, awesome. I made E7. Great. I can retire now. I'm happy. This is everything in the world. Hey, we're going to make you an E8. Are you sure? Do you really want me as an E8? All right, let's do this. And it worked out great. I mean, I had some detractors at Brigade. I think everybody does. But I think for the most part, I did a great job. I think everything went smoothly. Everything happened. I mean, there were some hiccups. There's always going to be hiccups. And most of the time, it's stuff that's way out of your control, but you get blamed anyway. Yeah, well. But
What advice do you give that young soldier? Well, let's go back even farther. That person that's thinking about joining the military. What would you tell them coming in? And then once they come in, what career advice are you going to give them?
so the biggest thing that I would tell a person, and actually I talked to a young man recently. It's been about 4 years now. It was a buddy of mine's son joined the Marines, and he was thinking about joining the Marines while he's still in high school. And my buddy and I and him were fishing and just talking about it. I told him, if you're gonna do it. Go all the way. If you're gonna join any military branch of the service, go all the way. Plan on retiring out of that service. Make it a full career. If things change, you can change that and walk away from it and get out early. But your plan is to do the full run all the way from the get go. And it's a different mindset going into the military that way. Because you're going to hate absolutely everything. Like, oh, I'm only here for 6 years. I'm just going to be done, get out, don't care. Screw these guys. I'll get my college money and I'll go off and I'll go do this, that, and the other thing. That's fine, I guess. But if you go in with, I'm going to make a career out of this, you're hitting your marks, your promotion marks, you're paying attention to it, you're keeping yourself better physically fit, you're getting your continuing education going because you are planning to make this a career. And that is a huge difference in mindset. And it's important. Now, what branch of service doesn't make any difference. To me, it doesn't. I do recommend to a lot of guys now to go active duty, whatever service it is. The Guard's great. I love the Guard. I don't regret anything I've ever done in the military. You know, I joined the Guard right out the gate at 17. That's fine. That's great. Go active duty for a little while. Get away from your city, your town, and don't go back for 4 or 5 years. And that is more along the lines of things that I've learned over the years as once I became an NCO and dealing with soldiers underneath me. I didn't have that problem because I was a good guy. I also got married young. I got married at 20 and had a kid at 21. So I was a lot more mature than everybody around me and had responsibilities. So everything was a little bit different. But I've seen so many guys in the Guard that join the military. I'm going to get away from it. I'm going to get away from this gang. I'm going to get away from these people over here doing drugs and get out of this cycle that I'm in because I know I'm spiraling. And to join the Guard, to go off basic AIT, and to come back to the same town, the same friends, the same family, the same problems. And then you're having to counsel the soldier on still using drugs. And I've seen that happen over and over and over. And it's frustrating because you know this is a good kid. You know, if this kid would have done 4 years in the army over in Korea or Germany, they come back different.
And watching them lose what what benefits and things that they were eligible for, I think that's the hardest thing too. It's
Yeah.
nothing worse than a hot UA or a family domestic event that
Yeah.
happened because dude, you were having problems with mom and dad before you left, or the aunt and uncles that whatever the situation. If you had been maybe living on post somewhere
Right.
for so many years, you wouldn't have that challenge to come home to. or if you did come home,
Well, there's different problems.
you
We
were
got to remember that.
yeah,
There are different problems, but it's not falling into the same cycle, and it takes a little bit harder. It's a little harder to fall back into those patterns when you're in a situation that's not influencing those patterns. So going back to your friends and families that are having the same drug problems and partying all the time, whatever, it's different than partying with a bunch of guys in the army. Because when you're partying with a bunch of guys in the army, we talked about it earlier, 6 o'clock, you're back in formation, whether you like it or not.
yeah, yeah,
And so that check and balance is there. And so, it's a better chance or probability of breaking that cycle by getting out and away for 3, 4 years, 5, 10, and then going back to it. You go back to it and it's like, whoa, you guys are really fucked up. Billy, seriously? McDonald's? Still? It's been 10 years, man.
yeah,
Come on. You were going to be the next president of the US, and you're not even a manager at McDonald's.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, not there's anything wrong with managers at McDonald's.
That's my
I'm
that
just
that
saying,
hey, that's
you know,
I want to be a fry cook at McDonald's
they're actually
when I'm
making
done
good
doing that,
money now.
especially in these parts.
Yeah, they're
These
making like
parts,
$20 an hour working at McDonald's. That
yeah.
blew me away.
I was like, my part-time job. Hopefully, you will see me at McDonald's window in a few years. I will be there. It's but again, when you're trying to build a family and buy a home, 10 years,
Well, you can't do it on
you can't
that
do
money
it.
now.
You can't.
You can't. I see it. Well, kind of sidetracking here, but a lot of the stuff that you see online and the kids talk about how hard it is these days, and it's like, all you got to do is quit buying coffee and the avocado toast and just suck it up and you can get your house. It's like, okay, to a point that is true. You can change your habits. You can not subscribe to as much stuff. You cut down your bills down to bare minimum. You go tent camping instead of into a hotel. You do those little things, but the prices are still skyrocketing faster than the wages are keeping up.
Yeah.
And that is a problem that is very real, and it's going to be bad for the society.
And especially in our state,
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah, we're worse
it,
than most of the others
I
because we
mean,
were ahead on the wages for so long.
and I look at like my own, my kids are all in their 30s now, but
Mhm.
it's like I look
Same
at
here.
what they have to pay for things,
Yeah.
and it's
My
like
daughter can't get a house.
my goodness,
She's paying her rent is more than my mortgage, and she cannot buy a house. The only reason my son's got a house is because VA. He got his VA mortgage. He went to the military. My daughter didn't go in the military. Nothing wrong with that. I think she's doing fantastic. She's got a great job, but just the costs,
it's tough
just
as a parent
the
watching your
yeah.
kids in some ways they're more successful than you were at their age
Oh,
or whatever,
absolutely. And neither
and they
one of them
can't,
realize it either.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, they,
and
they
it's
don't realize that they are so far ahead of the mother and I at their age than what we were. And it was only the last 20 years. Actually, when I came back from the first deployment and became an AGR, and the kids were in high school, they started seeing everything get so much better. And then when they moved out, I'm telling you, I love my kids, but when they moved out, financial wise, my wife and I were set. Just because you're not raising kids, you're not putting that kind of money out. And so I mean, it's a huge difference. But for young families who are starting today, it's hard. And the guard can be a benefit to that. I
it's
relied on that guard check for a long time as a PFC and a specialist, with a wife and a kid and another one on the way. That guard check meant something.
there were times that was where my guard check went for my TRICARE payment,
Hmm.
and that was when you got 5 kids. I, I'm telling you what, that was the best investment of a guard check
Oh yeah.
was for
Yep.
TRICARE. Um, it was you couldn't get insurance like that
Yep.
anywhere else for that price.
So
and it was. But now, do you struggle with it? Because the one thing that I think it sucks is I retired. I knew when I was going to retire that I wasn't going to be able to help my daughter with the rest because I still have like 13 months on my GI Bill, and
mhm,
I really wanted to transfer that to her, but I was
right,
I was too far. It was too close to retirement because you have to have a certain amount of years
right,
in to be able to transfer it
yep.
to them, and that was frustrating not being able to help my kid with can't help them with the house, can't help them with their college in that sense because
I think now you can help them with the house. I don't
oh
think you and I
wow
can, but I think there's a program now to where it's like you can give your VA benefits for education, which I did. I gave my VA benefits. I knew I was never going to college. I mean, I was already E6. I was set in my ways, on my retirement plan. And so I gave my benefits to my daughter, and she got her 2-year AA degree,
right on
and so that's what got her going on her step forward. And so that was huge, you know. But I think there is a program now. I remember I seem to recall I heard about it just recently, like in the last year or two. It's changed now, where you can transfer your VA benefits for your mortgage to your kids,
wow
which I think would be huge.
yeah yeah
But
especially
I
this
don't quote me on that. That's just something that's just
we'll
stuck in my
we'll
mind. We'll
be
have
we'll
to
be
look it
looking
out.
in we'll be looking
Yeah,
into that and I'll try to get you more information
yeah.
um about to wrap things up coming to the end of the tour. I'm
Okay.
gonna see if I can find um hopefully that wasn't too loud on the camera. um I'm just checking sometimes i keep I keep a lot of I keep a lot of memories um,
Hmm.
over the years. I don't know. No, I'll have to edit this piece out. But I had, for the longest time, it's probably in my other Bible, but I had Sergeant Shaver's,
Memorial.
his memorial in
Yeah.
here. And it was, there's, there's a lot in here
It's too
and
many.
way too many in here. And
Yeah, it really hit me when
it
Rob
was,
passed away. You know.
I it's the amount of the amount of services that I've been to. I think in the last 4 or 5 years is, and it's like it's not unrealistic in the sense
Yes,
we're not in our 20s and 30s
it's
anymore,
going to increase.
and
It
it's
is, but it's still I think the thing that gets me the most is when we lose people like Shaver and and McCune and Rob and Weaver, and I can just go on and on. Pratt hit me hard. Is when we lose these guys for whatever reason. I mean, obviously, suicide's always the worst one that really hits hard. But for whatever reason, like Rob passed away from pancreatic cancer. He's our age. That could have been us, you
it's
know, and that makes you rethink things. Am I doing things right in my life? Am I taking care of my family? Like when Pratt passed away, when he committed suicide, I got to the point of like, all right, am I talking to my guys enough? Am I talking to my wife enough? And so, yeah, having that kind of stuff, it's hard to keep around. I can't do it. I don't keep any of them. I don't even have my parents. You
oh
know,
wow
my dad passed. My mom's still here, but my dad and my stepdad have passed away. I don't have anything from their services just because I don't want to remember them that way. You know. So, all right. Well, that's a downer.
no
Yeah.
it's the reality of where we're all gonna be there.
Yes.
We're all you
Yeah.
know,
We're getting
and
older.
it's again, I think the importance of this is to share uh, those ones that we did lose and that
Right.
we're missing. Um, and again, I think it's important to share our stories. People are gonna know,
Yeah.
you know, what is there something that you would want your kids to know about your time in service?
Um, my son's in the service, so I think it's too late for that. He's already made that mistake. Just kidding. Uh,
Did he have any trouble growing up in the shadow of dad, knowing
other than being called baby Coles,
that?
that was probably the roughest part about it. I mean, because literally, we were in the same company, and everybody in his platoon, when we deployed, I became Papa Coles and Baby Coles. I was okay with Papa Coles because that's kind of
I bet.
respectful.
I
I get
bet.
it. I'm older. I think I was 40, 42, somewhere around there on a second deployment. And so, I get it. I was an old man at the time, especially in the military, being in your 40s, you're old. It's just the way it is. And so I was fine with that. But I don't think he was real cool with the baby Coles thing. But it was all his buddies. And it was just like they were like kids to me, like literally kids to me, because they're all hanging out with my kid. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, hope you're enjoying that retired life. I hope you're making
Oh,
the most of it.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's and I want to thank you for coming on.
All right.
It's always it's the again I'll share the cool thing about this is getting to make contact with folks that I haven't got to see since I got out. I kind of had a different approach when I once I got that paperwork. I don't know if I went back on post. I think I've been on post once, and it was for a fellow soldier when he got his E7,
Mm-hmm.
and I was late getting to it because of the traffic on the bridge, and I was so mad. I was so mad. I still got to see him,
Right.
but it was just it's like okay, I've waited 5 years to come back
Right.
on for anything, and then I'm late getting to it. It just even giving myself that cushion to get there.
Well,
So
I think retirement throws your whole timetable off. And it was like me. I didn't go back to work. I didn't go to work. I worked for a little bit, but then I left that, and now I'm fully retired. But my whole plan was to not work again. Especially once I made E8, I knew my retirement check was going to cover everything. And so my disability check, when that kicked in, it's just like there's no reason for me to work whatsoever, none. But the timeline throws you off when you're fully retired. So Caesar Vasquez,
yeah.
when he got E7, it's like, great, I'm going to be there. I want to be there. Or no, when he made his E8, I want to be there.
Oh, I
Yeah,
missed
I
that.
want to be
Yeah.
at that promotion and everything. And so it was like at the end of the week, and my wife's like, "Oh, no, got to be careful. You got the daughters, got the granddaughters that day." Okay, well, I'll take them with me. Well, we'll go to Camp Murray, and we'll make a day of it. It'll be fine. And so we did. We went on Friday, went to Camp Murray, walking through the brigade headquarters, and there's not a soul around. Thursday was the day that he retired because that was the end of the week. Friday was a
Oh,
Donza.
oh,
So I took a selfie with myself and my granddaughter standing in front of his office. He goes, "Hey, I'm tried, but I got retirement days."
dang,
You
dang.
know, it's just it was funny, but it was sad at the same time because it's like, yeah, but I
You know,
really wanted to be there for that, and I just completely
his
blew it.
he's retiring soon too. I'm hoping to drag him on here too.
Yeah,
So it's like
yeah.
that's what's wild is how many have retired just in the last 5 years since right the ones that retired right before I did, but how
Mhm.
many have retired since I've got out too. So
Yeah.
it's been kind of cool watching it. I'm just it's probably to the point now where I won't know if I went back to one of the units, I probably wouldn't recognize
Oh, it
hardly
was it
anybody
was
there.
that way when I retired. When I was still getting ready to retire, I went back to Spokane, and for something I don't remember what it was, but I was visiting with Ingram, and just looking around and just like, I was here for 6 years. You're the only person I know in this building right now. It's just like, and there's probably, 35, 40 people, MDA, AGR, full timers, just kind of floating around doing things. It's like, there's literally nobody here that I know. That's
do,
how fast things change.
do you have any soldier community connection, like any of the uh,
Oh, yeah.
veterans groups or?
Uh, I don't do any of the veterans groups. I've never been a big group guy. I've never been big on joining that type of stuff. I mean, there's good programs out there. I encourage guys who are struggling to go out and get into those groups. I mean, for me, my wife has been my rock and kept me steady through everything through my life, and she still is. So, and as long as I have her, I think I'm great. As far as the guys, I still keep in touch with Ferguson. He's up back in Spokane. He's also retired, and grandpa. We're kind of following the same timelines. So I keep talking to Chuck all the time. And then Ingram, I think Ingram's really the only one that's still in that I talk to regularly. So he's still the S4 in Spokane. And then Murphy, I talk to Murphy a lot, Chris Murphy. But he's been retired for a couple of years now, too.
They're
So,
they're all gonna be gone. I saw Colonel Machado at the 2146 reunion this summer. He was like one of the last of the people that was still active.
oh, yeah.
Just about everybody there was out or retired.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to it, and I hadn't seen some of those fellows since the beginning of the war.
Right.
It was kind of cool, but it was also kind of sad how again how many of us are gone.
Right.
But it was very cool seeing just I don't feel like I aged as bad as I thought I did. I'm, I'm rubbing it in a little bit.
Right. I
um,
think I aged just about what I expected. I'm falling apart already.
I was mad.
But,
I was because I finally grew my beard because that was my thing. I
oh
was
yeah.
gonna grow a beard and boy I did and it came in like this.
Hmm.
Like I didn't realize because my hair is still pretty dark. I just didn't realize that my beard was gonna be pretty much white when it came
So I'm
in.
blonde. I am literally
Oh,
blonde. My hair grows out. It's a kind of a dirty blonde. In the summertime, the sun it'll turn like platinum blonde in the summertime. My beard doesn't nothing like that. That's what I was expecting. That dirty blonde, kind of maybe a brown to it. Nope. It came in straight on salt and pepper, just looking like dog do. But
yeah,
that's right. I've always wanted to grow a beard.
yeah. Well,
I mean, I couldn't when I was before I joined. I was 17. I didn't even shave during basic training. The entire
whoa.
basic, I did not shave.
See, I was
They
30.
made us shave, made me do the whole thing. I shaved with a little safety cap on because it didn't matter. I didn't start shaving until I was 20.
I was 31 when I went to basic training,
Yeah.
and I got in trouble at AIT even though I was shaving every morning. I didn't
Yeah.
have a 5 o'clock shadow. I had a 12 o'clock shadow,
Okay.
and my first sergeant made felt that I wasn't shaving, and so would make me bring my shaving kit to class until my platoon sergeant said, "First sergeant, Private Hill, tell the first sergeant how old you are." 31 first sergeant. He's like, oh, soldier, yeah, you don't have to carry that shaving kit anymore. Because I was like, I was getting razor burn from shaving twice a day. It was bad,
Yeah.
and it was like, oh, I get it, I get it. So again, thank you for coming.
Oh
I
yeah.
enjoyed it a lot. I'm gonna let me get.
Yeah. I appreciate the invite. It was a good time. It's nice to catch up and talk to somebody.